Yeah, okay. Now I think the sound will be okay. Yeah, getting the sound now. Hello, hello. Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, so very good afternoon, everybody. This is the second session in a seminar mode. We are having the presentations of the research work being done by the students. In the morning, we had a very interesting 7 research work presented, and all the topics were quite interdisciplinary in the nature. Let us see the topics of this. Let me share the screen that in this second session, which topics are to be presented by the students. Okay, so first of all, we will have ASHA making a presentation on exploring absurdism in disrupted realities, a comparative analysis of Federico Fellini's cinema and Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party. It will be followed by JAYSHRI's presentation on fantasies, power and participation, exploring fan fiction and dark romance through feminist, psychoanalytic and reader response lenses. The third presentation today in this session will be by DHATRI on transformative literary analysis with chatbots, a case study of waiting for Godot. It will be followed by Darshan's presentation on the exploration of existentialism in Samuel Beckett's selected plays, a study of absurdity, isolation, and the search for meaning. After that, we will have BHUMIBA's presentation on her side of the story, feminist and cultural narratives in the retellings of mythical women. Thereafter, the 6th presentation of this session will be by AAKASH on Welcome to the Desert of the Real, Hyperreality and Blurred Boundaries in Postmodern Hollywood. The last, 7th and the last one will be by Yashraj on the philosophy of absurdity, identity, alienation, and human condition in Kafka's The Metamorphosis and Camus' The Stranger. So we have again a very interesting presentations, all of interdisciplinary nature. And let us start with the first presentation. Asha, you can come and start with the first presentation. Okay.
So, very good afternoon, everyone. On seminar of interdisciplinary approach in English studies, literature, theory, and beyond, I am dealing with the topic exploring absurdism in disrupted reality, a comparative analysis of Federico Fellini's cinema and Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party. So, these are my academic information. The table of content. First chapter conduct with the introduction, then second chapter with literature review, then absurdism in Harold Pinter's Birthday Party, and fourth chapter with Federico Fellini's cinema and the absurd in disrupted reality, and fifth chapter is comparative analysis of absurdism in Fellini and Pinter, and with conclusion. So, as introduction of the topic that absurdism defined that absurdism look at struggle between humanity itself for meaning and in different universe. As Albert Camus defined in his book, The Myth of Sisyphus. It was published in 1942. So, in that, talking about a man of Sisyphus who push a rock away and up a hill, and only for the roll down back. But it feels pointless. So, in historical context, we see that absurdism become more important after World War II. Second, and it's still relevant today, especially during the tough time like COVID-19. So, key themes of this focusing on disrupted reality, that non-linear story. It's don't focus stage light and existed against that identity struggle. Characters struggle with their own identity, who they are and who they want, who don't know that something of searching meaning in the life. And communication breakdown, they use a confusing dialogue and surreal situation, as a Fellini show in this film. And for this study focuses compare Fellini films like I Clowns, La Dolce Vita, and Eight and a Half. So, and with Pinter's birthday party. Both works exploring theme of disorientation, uncertainty, and social critique. In theoretical framework, we've seen that this analysis is based on absurdism, like Camus and Estlin explore it, and surrealism, the dream-like story, as seen it Fellini's film, and also postmodernism, that they break traditional rule, and so questioning that big ideas in human fragmentation. And methodologies like use that study comparative analysis of text and film applying absurd theory and examine exentation issues. So these are my hypotheses. Like this research explore how absurdism in Fellini's film and Pinter's The Birthday Party, reflecting existential crisis, alienation, and human fragmentation, especially during disrupted time like COVID-19. And despite their different style, and Fellini used like realism visual versus Pinter's minimalistic dialogue. So both depict meaningless and power struggle and life instability. So the study highlight absurdism as a timeless lens for the understanding personal and social dislocation in modern crisis. These are my research questions. Um, these are my research objective. So I start with literature review. So an author that Martin Esslin that rejected that don't follow a traditional story, that focus on like isolation, that human also feel lost and alone, that it's relevant to my dissertation. It focus on that absurdism, and as Gaston Hall argument on examine human longing versus irrationality. And it's that exaltation theme in both creator works like Pinter's and Fellini also. And new way Nainu V. Jamal argument on analyzing fragment language and in unclear identity. As we seen in the birthday party, like they use like something different language in that, and dialogue also. So it's related to absurd element in the birthday party. And Dr. B.Y. Patil and Dhyansri CM highlight helpless and meaningless talk. As birthday party, in that we can see that Stanley how feeling helpless by torturing of Goldberg and Mekan, and also they talk meaningless tongues. They have no any sense. So it's a reinforced theme of communication breakdown. And the fade out, the trace is a Fellini's shift to surrealism and identity. So in Fellini's film, we also seen that film, and that seen that how he shift in surrealism, like reality to dream. and it's provide context of Fellini's absurding style, and Jaitel home-based key argument about the highlighting absurdity in response to COVID-19. So in that he argue about that how absurdism feel like absurdism theme still relevant today, especially in tough time like COVID-19, and so it's follow a modern crisis like connected with absurdism. So these are my research gap like absurdism and modern crisis like COVID-19 remain underexplored, and disrupted reality and existentiality in instability need more analysis, and lack of cross medium research bridging film and theater. And this study fill the gap by examining like how both critics societal fragmentation and uncertainty. So my chapter 3 conduct with absurd element in the birthday party. So it's defining like absurdism in dramatic movement that rejected traditional storytelling, focus on chaos and irrationality. So absurdism like it's don't focus straight line. These are the exploring by thinkers like absurdist thinker like Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre. Right? So in key characteristic we can see that disjoint narrative. So there are the lack of clear structure and feel chaotic, and fragmentation dialogue can be meaningless or illegible, is seen in the birthday party. And existential uncertainty that characters struggle with their own identity, and by torturing of Goldberg and Macon, Stanley feels like if lost his identity, like who they are, and he lost existential uncertainty. And absurdism in the birthday party, we see in that ambiguity, like characters have unclear motives and even often seem in illogical. And Stanley in birthday party, we can see that Stanley's mysterious past and arrival of Goldberg and Macon. This is something is not clear that. And techniques is use of by Harold Pinter, like Pinter's pose, like he use that long silence, and then these feel like audience to uncertain and curious about that. And linguistic manipulation, yeah, they use he use also like confusing dialogue. So these are the technique of that, and themes as an interpretations, as I see that existential struggle, that Stanley vulnerability shows how individual can feel powerless, like Goldberg and Macon torturing him that you don't know that why it's that oppress power on that authorientation control on the Stanley, and dual focus on that existential that highlight it feeling of alienation and absurdity of life. And as we see in that political examine the power structure and their control over people, like how Goldberg and Macon power on Stanley. That so, as we move further, chapter 4, these are the conduct with Federico Fellini's film and disrupted reality and absurdism. Like in early films, like focus on that everyday like struggle and existential issue, and emphasize authenticity and deep emotion. So, Federico Fellini, like in his film, like. La Dolce Vita and I also mixed with the realities and fantasy. How he shift to surrealism. In the movie, we can see that eight and half like how he struggle with that own identity, and recorrecting themes like identity and memory. Main character deal with exaltation crisis and unresolved past. So in La Dolce Vita, the character Marcelo, who is suffers that like in the identity and memory. Right? and episodic storytelling, that non-linear structure capturing fleeting emotion. Also, Federico Fellini used this non-linear structure, and that makes audience question about that. And film analysis, I choose three films like I Clowns, that represent rebellion and absurdity. That in that Clowns, that about social crisis, social fragment crisis, and also blending with fantasy. And La Dolce Vita, in this movie, uh, the main characters, who is a disillusionment of his wealth, and also he is feels empty. And in 8.5 movie, we reflect on that article struggle and merging fantasy and reality. In that character, that Guido, as a filmmaker, and this is a introspective film, that in semi autobiographic, that he is he feeling uh, 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 who is a feeling that lost, that he shift between fantasy and reality. And he is as a filmmaker, he remembered that as in one home, that he dream like there are so many women, and he all women treated him as a like a children. But as he shift that reality to, he is now only a filmmaker, how to struggle with them. So these artistic struggle he felt in this film. And absurdism and COVID-19. So Fellini's theme of uncertainty and existential related to experience during the pandemic, like COVID-19. So in the Fellini used that uncertainty and existential theme. It's feels like the today tough time also. And also challenges social norms, and emphasizing realizing in chaotic times. In comparative analysis of absurdism in Fellini and Pinter, like aspect of absurdity, like chaotic word in film, like human feel lost, and alienation, that isolation, that Harold Pinter's birthday party, we seen that ambiguous identity in the birthday, and that tortured by both of the character. And narrative and ambiguity, like non-linear storytelling, that use follow that non-linear storytelling, that shift a bit of reality and fantasy. And in birthday party, we can see that withheld the backstory, that he don't know about that is a mysterious past, as seen in birthday party. And power and operation, that how power supply on that power authentication power on Goldman and Megan on the Stanley. And communication background, that surrealist dialogue and Pinter's post, that he used something different, like absurd theme, that dialogue of surrealism, and Pinter's post, like silent. These are something Christic and chasing and relevance, that themes of uncertainty, and as we seen that uncertainty in COVID-19, and Harold Pinter reflect an existential crisis. And style, that Federico Fellini is known for as a rich visual style, and is shifting to um, realistic to dreamlike and fantasy. And Harold Pinter's as the use of minimalistic tension, by using of pose, and some dialogue, and so nonsense, nonsense of conversation. So impact of that inspire realization of in Federico Fellini and Harold Pinter, that provoke thought on existence. And at conclusion, we talk about absurdity technique in both Fellini use surrealism visual and while Pinter use like minimalistic dialogue that explore theme like existential crisis and feeling of alienation and human fragmentation and as research continuation that connected absurdism in film and theater encouraging more research in different contexts. So key themes are highlighting themes of existential uncertainty and critic social norms and enduring impact on that absurdism continue to be important for understanding modern life and struggle people face as during tough time themes of isolation and uncertainty are especially relevant today particular during the COVID-19 as we feel. These are my references. Thank you. Now you can ask questions.
Asa, my question, if we were to face global crisis like the spread of COVID-19 again in the future, the philosophy of absurdism would help us to cope with such issues or make us more pessimistic about life. Please share your views.
So, as my point of view, if we were face global crisis like the spread of COVID-19 again, so it's focusing on the theme as we still relevant to the absurdism in we feel like uncertainty and isolation and alienation and human fragmentation now still today. So we can feel again that these if COVID-19 is alright.
Asha, how would the characters in the birthday party and Fellini's film try to find meanings or control if they were living through the COVID-19 pandemic?
As in the birthday party we can see that Stanley, who is suffering from existential crisis like uncertainty, he don't know about his mysterious past and so he is suffering from that power and that and Fellini's films as we seen that in movie 8 and a half that in that he struggle with that own identity like as we find in both in the birthday party and Fellin movie. So as we seen this type of reflection as we seen in COVID-19 also. So these are the find meaning of that control.
A question from the online viewer. Trushali is asking this question. Okay. As you have mentioned in your research gap about COVID-19 pandemic and absurdism, do you think contemporary audiences view absurdist narratives differently after experiencing the pandemic? How?
So I will give answer in the comment section.
Okay, so now see, have you? I don't know whether you have gone through all these films. Have you watched the films?
Yes, sir. One, two of that.
They're in Italian language. No?
No, sir. There are two film of translation as available.
Means it's a dubbed version. Is it dubbed in English?
Yes, sir.
Or there are
No,
subtitles?
Subtitles only.
Are there? Because I think it will be because there is a gap in the way you explain. If you have gone through it or all the original text, then you can speak it with more confidence also. one thing, if you can answer that, what was the reason for absurdity in Pinter's play? Like why there was absurdity during that time in a postmodern time? What are the reasons for absurdity in Fellini's films? That is an Italian context. This.
So both are the focusing on the human fragmentation and uncertainties. So these how I
Uncertainty comes from something, no? It suddenly doesn't come from the sky, no? Something happens, like World War happens. So it comes. So there is real life events that leads to absurdity in life.
so it's relevant today like modern crisis. So
But which
in
modern crisis?
absurdism,
No,
in
World
the,
War is one crisis. So in Fellini's case, which crisis? Is making films during 70s, I think. Which are the years in which the films are made?
19.
Which years the films are released?
That,
So then, without knowing the time, you cannot connect. No? Like how Pinter is writing in 57. Yeah, so it is post-World War, beginning of Cold War. That is the time, and that is he's trying to see as a connection with the politics of the day and human anxieties in between. Then when you see COVID-19 there, so isolation, alienation, these are good words that connects with absurdity and other kinds of things. But you have to see that now we are out of COVID-19 also. We are back to normal life.
but we felt that. So
We felt that. But then
but-
what happens now? Today, when you have referred to the
but
research
it's relevant
by...
today. It's relevant today, like modern life. In we don't know that there's uncertainty that, so we can connect that.
There is this work which you have cited also. Zeit Holmquist, Fellini in Memoriam, Absurdist Element, COVID-19 Reality.
Yes, sir.
So when you are in COVID time and when you are seeing the things, you see all these things. But today you are not in that time. You are out of that time. So how you view this today? Like people would say that, well, there were lots of fears that this will happen and that will happen. But nothing has happened. We have come back to the normal very easily. And our lives are not in that way disrupted as it happened after Second World War. That way, do you think that COVID-19 has affected our lives? Are we disturbed so much by COVID-19? We can say we have forgotten almost.
Now we forgotten, but we felt that, and I cannot that say that I said that about the 2001 earthquake because I can't felt that, so I can't. So yes,
So you have to make a critique of that. You have to make a critique, like whatever is seen by the researcher that this will happen, that will happen, an absurd experience people undergo. But what happens after that? You come out from that very easily, very normally. So you criticize that work. That whatever fears and apprehensions were shown, it seems to be wrong apprehensions. Human beings are capable to live a normal life coming out of that. So the research work which you are reviewing, that needs to be criticized. That their findings are limited to that time, and as soon as the time has ended, you doesn't see that happening as such. And then you can bring that idea that why such memories are forgotten so easily, why such experiences are forgotten. So why people come back to a normal life very quickly. We have come to normal life, that you agree or not?
yes, sir.
That people now are not, in a way, we don't refer to COVID-19 in any of our things, like today's life is a very normal life. But people were not able to come to that normality after Second World War or whatever happened, that it took lots of time in understanding the thing. That was highly traumatic experience for so many people. Germany's experience, Japan's experience, that was very traumatic. Now this is not like that. So when you make your observation afterwards, you have to make a critique of that. In the morning, we had one on cyber feminism. So Donna Haraway once upon a time told that cyber feminism means that male and female are equal. There is no need of feminism now because machines do not have gender. So with the cyber invention, other thing. But she made a critique of that, that no, she is wrong. She is wrong in that, because you see many films talking about women, video games, other things, and you find that yes, patriarchy, gender dynamics do operate even today. So what you are doing, you are making a critique of, you are falsifying that. That is the gap here that you need to do. Then there is a research gap, that you can falsify such research by seeing that, well, it doesn't seem to be that it has happened in a real life also. Are you getting the point?
Yes, sir.
What people have said is fine, but what has happened now, how people have moved out of that, that tries to tell that, well, this research were good at that time, but not now.
But crisis comes afterward also, sir.
It
So
may
we
come,
can-
we don't know. Then what will happen? So at this point of time, when you are writing the research, what will be your angle of looking at it? How will you look at it? We will be more prepared now. Just the second year only, 2020, we are having this 5th anniversary of all those Tali Thali Bajao days. This was the month we were doing that. So we are in this 5th anniversary, and we think it was not absurdity, it was stupidity. When you look back, you say it was not absurd, no alienation. We were stupid people that we were doing or involved in all those things. Just in 21, there was terrible wave, and there was no lockdown also, no alienation, no isolation. And as compared to 21 was more terrible. But nobody was in lockdown. Everybody was living a normal life. So it was falsified even that day, that year only. We have become normal in a terrible moment, high peaked hours of COVID also. We were living normal life. That's why this is the thing, that we become very ready within a year. We became ready within a year, and we will be more ready if it will come again also. That is why there is a gap to make a critique of the thing. Are you able to see that properly in that context? Then otherwise what people are saying, that only you are repeating, you are recycling the same thing. You're not moving ahead. Gap, finding gap and filling is moving on. You have to move on from that point also. Okay, the next one is JAYSHRI's presentation on fantasies, power, and participation, exploring fan fiction and dark romance through feminist, psychoanalytic, and reader response lenses.
So hello everyone. Today I am going to give my presentation on a day of the seminar on interdisciplinary approaches in English studies, literature theory and beyond. My topic for this presentation is Fantasies, Power and Participation, Exploring Fan Fiction and Dark Romance through Feminist, Psychoanalytic and reader response lenses. This is my academic information. In the introduction, the background and focus of study for my dissertation, this chapter introduced the central theme of dark romance and fan fiction, exploring how these genres negotiate power, trauma, and consent. It situates the study within a digital and feminist discourse, emphasizing the blurred boundaries between fantasy and reality in romantic narratives. The dark romance has always been seen as a taboo. Mostly criticized by many critics as well as for this presentation I have choose three primary texts. First one is 50 Shades of Grey by A.L. James, which is former known as a master of the universe, which which is a fan fiction of Twilight Saga series written by A.L. James. Then Manacled, which is also a fan fiction of Harry Potter series written by Sen Linyu, which is a Dramoin fan fiction, means Draco and Hermione. Then By Fate I Am His is also a fan fiction of BTS member Jungkook, which is on Wattpad. This text serves as a case studies to examine how power dynamics, gender roles, and reader interpretations evolve across mainstream and fan-created narratives. This is the theoretical framework I have used for my dissertation. I have used feminist theory of Judith Butler, then for psychoanalytic theory, Sigmund Freud, then Kathy Caruth, and for reader response, Stanley Fish and Wolfgang Iser. These are my hypotheses, research question, and objectives for the research. My hypothesis is that dark romance and fan fiction can both reinforce and subvert traditional gender roles, especially through themes of power, trauma, and consent. Reader engagement plays a key role in shaping these interpretations, making fan fiction a space for both resistance and reinforcement of a dark romance trope. These are the research questions that my research asked, that how answers that how are power dynamics, gender roles, and agency constructed in dark romance and fan fiction. How do feminist and psychoanalytic theory intersect in exploring themes of trauma and desires? Then how do readers engage with problematic themes like possessiveness and coercion? And how do digital platforms influence the reception and evolution of dark romance? And last one is that do fan fiction narratives challenge or reinforce dominant cultural perception of romance and gender? Dark romance, mostly if we are asking someone that what is dark romance, they must say that it's a erotica. There are they read only for the erotic scenes which comes in the dark romance, but it's not that. There are traumas we can find in the characters. Then these are my objectives, that analyzes power, gender dynamics, and psychological themes in dark romance and fan fiction. It also examines whether these narratives reinforce or challenge patriarchal ideologies, explore reader engagement and ethical discourse surrounding dark romance, assess the role of digital platforms in shaping fan fiction narratives. This is my literature review. As I say that these are the theories and theories how I have applied in the research. For reader response theory, Stanley Fish and Wolfgang Iser, then Louise Rosenblatt. Then for psychoanalytic, Michel Foucault and Henry Jenkins. Then there are for a feminist, Angela McRobbie, Rosalind Gill, Sandra Gilbert, and Susan Gubar, Janice Radaway, Judy Thurman, Basil Van and Basil Van der Kolk. These all theorists and their theorists are in my research. I have used to analyze that how the females are portrayed in these works. Then how their trauma and their psychology of the mind has been interpreted, and how the reader and response. The readers are the only one. For them, writer is writing something, so the readers are main. This is my research gap, that there is a limited body of research on how fan fiction challenges and or reinforces romance tropes, a lack of studies on reader reception in digital spaces, and a need for an interdisciplinary approach that combines feminist, psychoanalytic, and reader response theories. In the chapter 3, I have choose the 50 Shades of Grey, which is, as I say, fan fiction of the Twilight series. The feminist critique of the novel is that the novel reinforces patriarchal roles. The main character of the novel is Christian Grey, who is a dominant, and Anastasia, who is a college-going student, as a submissive, reflecting Simone de Beauvoir's idea of the woman as the other. In the book, the second sex, he has mentioned that women has always been seen compared to men, that their identity is related to men, that identify them as a woman, that as a man has always been seen as a dominant man, meanwhile women are always submissive. Then consent is blurred by Christian's financial and emotional control, echoing bell hooks concern with how inequality shapes romantic power. In the novel, Christian is a very wealthy man. He owns a company, and meanwhile, the female character, Anastasia, is a college going students who is in interview Christian, but Christian got obsessed with her in that time. In the novel, Christian tells her, I want you to willingly surrender to me. So there can we can say that how he dominates. He mentions that what he wants, he doesn't mind that what she wants. His possessiveness is framed as a protection, aligning with Millet's critique of patriarchal control disguised as a love. In the novel, we can also find that when Christian tracks her phone, and also he buys the company where she is working, and saying that I this is for your security. They are naming it to security. Meanwhile, they tried. He is just trying to control the Anastasia. Then a psychoanalytic approach. Christian's behavior stems from repressed childhood trauma, in line with Freud's theory of repetition compulsion. As a Christian's character, in the childhood, he was abused. He was abused by his foster parents, and which can be seen after when he got adult in his behavior. His desire reflects psychological dependency, or not a mutual intimacy, resonating with Butler's view of desire shaped by power, that what he desires is the most important. In the novel, the BDSM is also misinterpreted, interpreted, blurring pain and pleasure without clear consent. A reflection Carruth's view of unprocessed trauma resurfacing. For BDSM, there is a term which means which name is SSC, which means safe, sane, and consensual. But in the novel, Christians forgot that line, and there are some rules for the BDSM which are misinterpreted by him. Now, in the novel, Christian insists that this is who I am and this is what I need. As I said, that the first priority is what Christian needs. For reader response theory, meaning is shaped by interpretive communities, not fixed in the text, aligning with Stanley Fish's idea that reader actively construct ethical meaning. For example, if I am telling this six students to read that book and ask that what do you like, or like I am asking them that tell me what is your review, then it's normal that that will be difference in everyone's. Someone will critique it, someone will say that it's okay. So we can find that. Then reader responses range from seeing empowerment in Anastasia's journey to critiquing coercion, reflecting Radaway's insight that romance is dead through personal, cultural, and emotional lenses. Platforms like AO3 means Archive of Our Own and Wattpad host critical discussions, rewrites, and parodies showing how readers reshape narratives based on shared values. The Huffington Post reviews acknowledges the book's massive success, but refers to it as a sad joke punny of plot. The article explores the cultural phenomenon of the novel, attributing its success more to word of mouth marketing and its appeal to female readers than its literary merit. In chapter 4, I have analyzed Manacled, which is fanfiction of Harry Potter, and then By Fate I Am His, which is a fanfiction of Jungkook. In a feminist analysis of these both works, in Manacled, Hermione's forced silence and captivity reflect the systematic erasure of female agency, echoing Gilbert and Gubbert's critique of how patriarchal narratives suppress women's voices. The story of Manacled is that it is after the war is the story starts with the line that the war is now ended and the Voldemort has won the war. And in that, the Hermione had to go through a breeding program in which and for that which is supervised by Draco. Meanwhile, also in the novel, Hermione's memory has been erased by the people. Here is the lines from the original novel that they had been about to leave when Umbridge paused and whispered, "Silencio," prodding Hermione's chin up with her wand so that their eyes met. She said, "You will understand soon enough." Hermione had been left in darkness and silence. Then second is By Fate I Am His, which reinforces submission by framing coercion as a destiny, aligning with a Macrobi's view of feminist media using fate to mask lack of a choice. In this fan fiction, the female character, whose name is Saga, she depends on her fate that she has married to Jungkook, the character of Jungkook, forcefully, and she says that, and in the novel also. The character of Jungkook try to tell her that, have you forgotten why are you here? So there is a reason that he wanted her there, and that's why she is there. Then trauma and desire. Manical presents trauma bonding as a means of survival, where memory suppression mirrors internalized disempowerment, and resonating with Judy Thurman's trauma theory. There is a line that your magic has walled off parts of your mind. As a result, it fragmented you somewhat. Hermione instead in horror. Do you mean dissociated? Something like that. And also in the fan fiction, by fate I am his, violence is romanticized as a care, blurring emotional boundaries, and a dynamic Van der Kolk identifies as a common in trauma responses. There is a line in which we can find the trauma of the male character, protagonist of the fan fiction, Jungkook. Then my Emma got me this new toy today. You guys told me you all will play with me only if I bought a toy. Now I have a toy, so you will let me play with you, won't you? So in this chapter, the trauma of Jungkook in his childhood, that he was a illegitimate child of a mafia king, so he had to go through so many things in his childhood. And after this line, there is a lines come that the children who were he went to play, they tell him that no, we will not play with illegitimate. So we can say that there is a trauma of that word that he feels. Then reader engagement. Online readers interpret dark romance differently. Some find it cathartic, while others critique it as a normalizing coercion, reflecting Rosenbaum's view that meaning emerges through individual reading experience, as I said. And fan fiction can both challenge and reinforce dark romances trope. Why the fan fiction are written? If there is a work of literature we have, then why we are writing fan fiction? So that because we want something that our imagination, and we are using those characters to perform in our imagination. Platforms like AO3 and Wattpad, and there are still many websites we can find where the fan fictions are getting written, like Inkit and many other. In line with Jenkins' concept of participatory culture, fans act as a co-creators, not passive consumers. They reshape ethical meanings through engagement. On the platform like Wattpad, we can find the many programs happening there where they are awarding the writers and their works on a database. In conclusion, in this research, I found that dark romance explores power, trauma, and consent, often blurring fantasy and reality. 50 Shades of Grey reinforces traditional gender roles, while fan fiction offers both critique and intensification of dark romance tropes. Reader engagement shapes interpretation, critique, and transformation of these narratives. Addressing the research question, as I asked, that dark romance constructs power and gender through dominance, submission, and desire. Fan fiction reinterprets these themes, sometimes reinforcing or subverting them. Readers actively engage in discourse, reshaping ethical perspectives on consent and agency. These are the limitations for my presentation, the lack of reader participation. For this research, I haven't conducted any survey, because I don't find I am a reader, but I haven't find so many people who are reading the fan fiction. So it's not in a this way it's not possible to analyze it in future. If there is a chance, then we can. The study does not include empirical data from fan readers, limiting the strength of the reader response analysis. Limited LGBTQ plus and diverse representation, as there are so many texts like this also exist with LGBTQ plus and representation, that The selected text focus on heterosexual Western narratives, excluding queer, trans, and non-Western perspectives. For future research, we can say that impact of digital fan communities and on mainstream romance, that how the writers are writing for the digital fan communities. There are so many digital fan communities we can find on Instagram or Facebook or so many places. The psychological effects of consuming dark romance, that after what is this psychology of a person who reads dark romance or writing that. Then role of AI in reshaping fan fiction narratives, that how AI can be helpful to reshape the fan fiction narratives. These are my learning outcome. For this research, I would say this is not just the research of 3 months for me. I have been reader of a fan fiction, reader and a writer in my teens of fan fictions for like 6 to 7 years. So as a long time reader of a fan fiction, I have always been fascinated by the themes of dark romance. So what happens when we are newly into fan fiction? That time there won't be any triggered warnings, which means there will be they had been mentioned that in this work you will find the non-consensual and rape and everything that. That time when I used to read, so there was a question that oh, so this is the love, they are romanticizing the abuse as a love. So it was the question for me for like all those years. And I have gone through from this my fan fiction phase to dark romance mainstream novels I have read. In those novels we can find there is a triggered warning given, and even if and I have read this those articles too, but in those articles they only mentioned that this is the kink which is used by a person because and they like it, that's why. Then and and also in that time, so the fan fiction is very connected to me. There was a time when in my phone I have a screen time of 14 hours. 13 will be for Wattpad, I am reading the fan fictions, and one for Instagram, searching for good recommendation to read fan fictions. So so which was not that good, but still I have been living the experience of reader itself is for me. Then inspired by observing how women in society often romanticize control or emotional abuse as a love, mistaking it for care or passion. So you all might have or not have seen the women around in society getting abused by their husband, brothers, or fathers. Whenever a woman is getting married, their parents will tell them that ધણીના હાથની ધોલે ખાવી જોઈએ. So it's how normalized so it's normalized that way. And I have seen with my eyes, then my brothers telling me that sometimes if your husband if your husband slapped you, then it's okay, it's his, what we can say that word, right, he's right to slap you because you are his wife. Then I often wondered what motivates writers to explore narratives centered on power, trauma, and consent. So this was also my question, that why everyone is romanticizing the abuse in the name of a love. So I am thinking that maybe it's the reason like a writer has gone through something in their childhood, either they are got sexually abused or something like that that happened with them, and that's why they are writing this type of a literature. From this research, I learned that dark romance is both a space for subversion and reinforcement of traditional gender dynamics. Psychological factors like trauma, desire, and fantasy play a crucial role on its appeal. Fanfiction provides a platform for readers and writers to negotiate ethical concerns, rewrite problematic elements, and engage in discourse. New perspective gained. I have gained a new perspective as well, that reader engagement actively shapes the evolution of dark romance. Digital platform influence how narrative are interpreted and critiqued. This research depends my understanding of why these themes resonate with the audience and how they are reshaped in fan communities. Like still nowadays, if there is a book which got published, so I am scrolling through Instagram. So the first reel will be they are saying that this book is very good, and the another reel comes up the next, which will be criticizing the book. So we can say, and also there is so many things which I have seen or read in the Wattpad, that the writers of the dark romance has always been ashamed that you are writing is not good, either by their parents or their friends. They don't see that the problem with them, that they are why they are writing. They don't try to find that is there something happened with them, that's why they are writing or not. And as a reader, readers also get ashamed that you are reading this kind of literature, which is porn. This kind of things are told as a porn. And there are also many cases of writers and readers attempting suicide, and some of dies too because of this bullying, which we can say. These are my bibliography, and now I am open for the questions.
So, JAYSHRI, my question is that does fan fiction subvert or reinforce patriarchal narrative through its portrayal of romantic power dynamics?
Yes. So answer is yes. Fan fiction do subvert or reinforce the patriarchal narratives through its portrayal of romantic power dynamics. That we know that women are always been showed as showing their love, and men are showed as a nonchalant. Like if the man is in love with you, he won't be giving. He won't be that lovey-dovey kind of. And meanwhile, woman has been we can say that that has been shown in that, and also in the this dark romance or fan fiction, we can find that too, that the male character has always been that had to act rude or rude or something. They say that this is because of his trauma, but it's the female character also goes from the trauma, but she doesn't act like that. So yeah, it also does this.
JAYSHRI, my question is regarding the novel 50 Shades of Grey. And as you have discussed, and in the novel, we also find that Christian is like dominating character, and in the other side, Anastasia is like a submissive character. So can we read it as like because of this Christian upper hand in the financially upper hand, then it is happening? What if we consider the scenario in reverse? If Christian were a middle class man and Anastasia a businesswoman, would he still be able to assert his desires over her in the same way or not?
So it's a very great question to be asked. That depends on their mentality. That if the mentality of the Christian and Anastasia is still same, even the roles are reversed, then yes, Christian will be able to assert his desires over her in the same way, that by manipulating her. And if it's not that, and Christian is named like Anastasia, and Anastasia who is the manipulator, then there will be also the same thing would happen.
Okay, you also talked about digital discourses on all this thing, like social media and other things also talk about this. Now, one difference is there, like print publications and digital publications. In print, there is a peer review or second or third thought before people go for the print one. There is lots of reading, rereading. Whereas in digital, there is a first thought that comes there. So does that make any difference between digital discourses and the print discourse, or discourses coming in the print?
Yes, there are, like even if the fan fiction, there are so many fan fictions which are getting published as a mainstream novel and getting printed, but for that there will be many critics, or the team of writer has to go through it to analyze, and also the comments and the reviews of the readers also will be able to in that. And if the fan fiction is fan fiction, as you have said, that they put the only thought that comes into that, and that's true that they only put that, but there are still so many writers who edits that after sometimes. And I have seen that if they are editing, there will be so many changes we can find in that. And don't know if they are editing that things with the help of the reviews which other readers have gave, or they are editing because they found it something lack of that. So it's
That because this is point of reader response, not the original writer, but the way people read and they respond to that. So when people respond on social media, it is a self-thought. And when people publish, there is a reviewer who will ask questions to the writer, and then writer will have to answer to those questions. So there is a gap of 3 months, 5 months, sometimes a year or 2 years before things getting published. So there is lots of cooling down period in the print one. That's why it has in a way more value also. And this is like first idea. Then you edit something, but still it is your own point of view that is changing. It is not the third party intervention coming and raising doubt or question, and then the editing is not happening also. So that way reader response lens, when we say social media discourse and the print discourse, that is a huge difference that comes in that also. Okay, so the next presentation now is DHATRI, and she is going to make a presentation on transformative literary analysis with chatbots, a case study of waiting for Godot.
Hello everyone. So my topic of my dissertation is transforming literary analysis with chatbots, a case study of waiting for Godot. Talking about how the traditional literary analysis, and now with the emergence of a technology, the analysis of literature has been going through a change. And now that raises a question that how nowadays we are doing literature analysis. And technological intervention, starting from the printing press, that every time adds in the human ability. Similarly, with the development of technology in the factor of literary analysis, it also enhances the literary analysis. So there are application of AI tools in these literary studies, and particularly the tools of AI chatbots. So I have used chatbot like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and Copilot to study on the text waiting for Godot. And for idea behind choosing this text is because it is a very absurdist text. So there are possibility of multiple meaning, repetition, and its existential theme, making it complex. So for chatbots, it is easier if the text would be easy to digest. But in the case of waiting for Godot, it makes the complex idea. So in this way, this would be an complementary for how we are doing literary analysis with the chatbots. So theoretical frameworks has been used like media theory, as Marshall McLuhan says in his work, A Medium is Message, that in traditional way, the medium is a teacher. And now with emergence of a generative AI, the medium is changing. So how we perceive the text is at the center. Then digital humanities, reader response theories, and post-humanism. All these theories has been used. These are the hypotheses and research questions. Major research question is how these AI chatbots like GPT, Gemini, Copilot, and Claude transform the process of literary analysis in comparison to traditional methodologies. So in the literature review, I have gone through, and in that I have found that there is a development of generative AI especially after the 2020. There is, with the help of generative AI, there is a lots of chances to do a literary analysis. by doing a case study of that, one of the article of Karen O'Halloran, in which she, as in her research framework, used generative AI as a reading a short story. So it is a one tool within the research framework. So in AI and theater of absurd is still there is a lack of study on this case, and about the visualization, and particularly in higher education, how we can comprehend this text. So by doing literature review, I find these gaps, that there is unlimited analysis of text by using chatbots, especially the genre specific, because there are in general lots of analysis is available, articles are available, but not a genre specific like novel, short story, or play. Even the insufficient studies on AI chatbots in absurdist and existential themes, and there is a gaps that how that AI generated chatbots are is comprehending symbols, themes, and characters. So there is also gap, and there is a challenges in AI contextual and philosophical understanding of literature. So this is also not explored AI area, that where there is a study has been done on how the chatbot is comprehending the philosophical idea, and of course the pedagogical studies is also in how we can incorporate the chatbots in literature classroom. This is also a matter of development. So in that case, we can say that chatbots in a particular literary analysis it is in its infant stage. So starting from chapter 3, I have used two methods in my research methodology. First is my one-to-one interaction with the chatbots, and second method is I have conducted a Google form survey and circulated with the postgraduate students who had been studying waiting for Godot text with the reference of generative AI. And from that responses, I have prepared chart, and I've used that chart with the help of software NVivo to analyze the data. So on that basis, I'm making argument of chapter 3, 4, and the conclusion. So the traditional literary analysis is very much teacher centered, and now with the emergence of AI, this scenario is changing. As Benjamin Bloom in one-to-one tutoring, in the article Two Sigma Problem, talking about how I quote, teachers are frequently unaware of the fact that they are providing more favorable condition of learning for some students than they are for other students. Generally, they are under the impression that all students in the process class are given equality or opportunity for learning, unquote. So traditional teaching method here lacks, and where coming in the stage AI chatbot. So they are providing an one-to-one tutoring to the person, and that's why it makes the tutoring more effective. So analysis, I have divided two chapters, and in these two chapters 3 and 4, I have given a 3 prompts. So first prompt is given to how this repetition and linguistic patterns has been used in the AI chatbots. The same prompt is designed and shared to four of the chatbots, and based on their interpretation, I am arguing. So among them, I am asking that about the question of the very famous quote of the waiting for Godot. I quote that nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody go. So on that ground, the AI chatbot which is more effective. So ChatGPT is most accurate in giving the answer a perfect overall understanding of the very idea of the repetition and linguistic pattern. The reason is because it has an vast amount of data available with it, and that's why it can also provide the structure breakdown as well. So another prompt was given to the word frequency analysis. Now, in the research guide, there is an importance given to why we are doing word frequency chart. So it is word frequency analysis provides insight into structure and of a content of textual information. And particularly if we do that word frequency analysis of any work, then we get the idea that how themes of that work is reappearing. So in the case of waiting for Godot, the idea of doing word frequency analysis is to prove how the absurdist elements are there. So I have asked chatbots that provide me a charts diagram of the how the word frequency are there. However, there was a lag. So this is one of the finding that it provides very elusive right kind of an information, which is wrong. So I manually entered the data, and then I said that are you able to make a charts on that? Then the initially misinterpreted data was corrected, and then it provided the idea. And third prompt was given about the existential meaningless, and that is among them, the Claude AI was more effective when it comes to the philosophical turn. Rather than ChatGPT, Claude is able to provide a high research scholar, research kind of a language, and that is what make it more effective. And third prompt was given to give an allegorical representation of the character Vladimir Estragon, Lucky Pozzo. So how there is an allegory and a Godot. So GPT lacks the deeper comparative analysis, and Gemini, on the other hand, lacks the textual analysis. And Claude, on the other hand, less focus on political allegory. And Copilot was not able to cite the scholars from how they are doing. So these are the findings. And talking about these are the word frequency chart, which was provided by ChatGPT, Claude, and Microsoft Copilot after manually entering the data. So here the role of human supplement is also needed, that human interaction is needed. These are the charts in which the responder has responded that how they are using the chatbots, which chatbot is more effective. And according to that Google Form survey, responders say that ChatGPT is most effective. And by doing the one-to-one talk with one-to-one chatting with the AI chatbots, I got the idea that ChatGPT is more effective in that case. How they are using particularly AI chatbots in comprehending the waiting for Godot, then these are the percentages as given. And this literary analysis is one of the chart is showing that how it comprehends the effectiveness of the AI chatbots in assisting interpretation of the play. So more than 50% is said that it is more effective than traditional methods when it comes to personal learning. The survey of the chapter 3 and finding is that ChatGPT is strong contextual understanding and good at textual analysis, where the limitation is that it may generate a generic interpretation. So we have to cross check that. Gemini is having a multimodal capabilities, effective at pattern recognition, but lacks the word frequency analysis and other chapters. Claude is having an ethical AI model, provides a detailed thematic insight when it comes to existentialism. And Copilot is code-based charts and diagrams has prepared. So it is less effective in terms of literary analysis. Moving to chapter 4, that now comes the character, the main, Godot. So here the Godot's character is very much ambiguous when we are talking about the waiting for Godot, and that's make this play very much complex. And that's why the Sartre's idea of bad faith appears, that when Vladimir and Estragon was not trying to having their personal freedom, on the other hand they are escaping on the name of Godot. So they are not taking fully responsibility of their human action. So on that base, the Godot's character is highly ambiguous. This chart is made by the NVivo software with the respondent given by that. Balaji and all, they are arguing in one of their article that how the visualization of the text is very much important when it comes to literary analysis. So it said, I quote, text to image models which have demonstrated astonishing capability in turning complex text prompt into photorealistic images, even for unseen novel concept, unquote. And particularly in the case of Godot, because Godot is very much ambiguous and a very much a character of a debate. And at that time, if the image generation is there, the understanding of the play may be deeper. So the responders had been asked the question that what kind of visualization scene has they been used in that, and how they are helpful in them. So moving to the findings, that image generation of Godot. So now I made a general prompt and given to all 4 chatbots. Now I'm talking about how this 4 chatbots provided the image. On the left side, there is an image generated by ChatGPT. This image is blurry, a kind of an hazy environment is there, the desert is there, so it is capturing the essence of existentialism. So we get the deeper understanding. And even the character who is appearing is a very gender neutral. We cannot say that it is male or female, so it is very general. And the tree of barren tree is appearing, so it also reinforcing the idea of existential aids, which is reflecting in the waiting for Godot. So this image reflect that we may get deeper understanding of the Godot's character. On the other hand, on the right side, it is image generated by Gemini, in which the child is appearing. So Gemini is interpreting Godot as an innocence, like having a new hope for the future. And for even the Vladimir and Estragon, it is like that, but it is not fully capturing the idea of Godot, because Godot is a very abstract concept. We cannot classify it. So third, on the left side downside, it is generated by Microsoft Copilot. It is male coded figure hinting at possible gender bias. So as Donna Haraway's in Cyborg Manifesto talk about that there is no need of cyber feminism, but we can say that here it is appearing that they are representing male Godot, and this is general because the religion, we are having a male centric religion. In that case, it is Copilot is preparing the image in male coded. And last one is by the Claude, and it captures the idea somewhat of the Godot, because it is showing how the abstract idea of Godot, we cannot define Godot, or even there is no definition, it's given in the play. Even Samuel Beckett himself says that I am not able to say who is Godot or what is Godot, is this an idea or a person. So this is a very much abstract, and that's what Claude is appearing in the Claude's response. So there is an absence present. Second visual was a rope hanging scene. First, on the left side, it is by Claude, and it says that it isn't sharper and dryness of the land. So on the side of that, so both the figures like having head, so it captures the idea of Vladimir and Estragon, and even the tree and the rope is outside the tree, and so that is capturing the cyclical nature of human existence. So it captures the idea of rope hanging scene, but it lacks the biblical illusion, right? And the right side, it is an given by the ChatGPT. So the barren land is also reinforcing the idea of how the existentialism is there. So rather than Claude, it is a ChatGPT who is giving more accurate image. A third scene was the willow tree, and the biblical allusion was there that now the Vladimir and Estragon was trying to give away from the human existence. They don't want more human existence, and that's why they are saying that there will no human, so no more weeping. So willow tree appearing in that context. So first, on the left side, it is generated by Copilot, and it is in dark and gloomy. On the other hand, ChatGPT generated image is very much golden and showing a kind of a religious kind of an idea that there will be second coming kind of a thing. So it is also not capturing the idea. And third was even the abstract. So none of the images is capturing the very deep idea which is rooted in the play. So when we go to the complex idea of the play, it lacks the understanding. So while asking about the significance of Lucky's speech in Waiting for Godot, which is the very idea of, I quote, divine apathia, divine aphasia, and divine athambia, unquote. So this is something is more complex to understand. It is not general or even not easy to interpret. So I asked chatbot that, are you able to comprehend? Then ChatGPT interrogates historical and philosophical reference, and it provides such as a stoicism and existentialism. So ChatGPT was able to do that, and that is possibility because so many responder had already did a literary analysis with the chatbot. So that's why ChatGPT is able to do that. Gemini's response would require supplement, and other two chatbots were not at all able to answer this question. So when we go deeper into the play, it are not able to answer the question. So my conclusion of the dissertation is that AI chatbots definitely revolutionize the literary analysis by enhancing engagement with complex texts like this. AI detect patterns like repetition and circularity in Waiting for Godot, especially with the AI chatbots. Images visualize key elements like tree, rope, and themes of existentialism. And if we are talking about findings from the survey, then 84% of the respondents found AI-generated image useful. Chatbots provide diverse interpretation and breakdown given by Benjamin Bloom into sigma problem of one-to-one tutoring. That is also we are able to feel with the AI chatbots. If we are talking about AI versus traditional literary analysis, then we need a human supplement here to do a contextual, historical, philosophical, and socio-political elements. For example, if we are making this play understand in a very much Indian context, then we have to give example in that context. So that where a human approach is needed while we are having an AI chatbots as a supplementary tool. Even the historical understanding of the person would be different. So at that time also human assistance is needed in the chatbots. If we talk about AI's accuracy, reliability, and critical depth, then from the responses as well, and in general conversation, we find that there is a cross-checking with academic source is needed when we are having an literary analysis with the chatbots. And 89.5% respondents say that cross-checking is necessary, and 61.4 respondents say that they are asking AI itself to provide more clarification. So there are possibilities in that way. Limitation is of the AI chatbots is that it lacks emotional depth when it comes to very in-depth question from the play, and even the limited contextual awareness, like from where region the questioner is asking the question, that contextualized awareness is also lacking. There are personal biases, as we have seen in image generation, that there are biases, and even the biases of a lack of adaptability to non-Western literary tradition. Like we cannot put this existentialism in the Indian context with the help of chatbot, because it has a vast amount of data of Western literary tradition. And there are language barriers, because this is a French originally play and then translated it into English. So we can do more analysis in the case of other languages, how chatbots are interpreting other texts in other languages as well. And personally, of my dissertation's limitation is that I have a limited participants base, and I have chosen only postgraduate students. So this survey could be extended to the professors and research scholars, so that we get more authenticated views on how we can incorporate AI chatbots and what are their involvement in that. Finding most is that prompt engineering is at the heart. If the prompt is proper, then chatbot will definitely enhance the literary analysis. So prompt engineering is need to do when we are using the literary analysis. And of course, a strong pedagogical potential as a supplementary tool in literary studies, and the hybrid model where we can have a human and AI chatbots with hand in hand, and that's what make the literary analysis more effective. This is the bibliography. And now, if you have a question, feel free to ask.
So Dhatri, my question is that are chatbots capable of capturing the nuances of Beckett's use of language and silence in Waiting for Godot?
Okay, so chatbots are able to capture the nuance of language, but for the silence, like we have to give a lots of interpretation, and for silence, even we have to watch the play. So then we get the idea. So where we need also human supplementary, because language it can master, and language it can interpret, and it can give a better idea and interpretation. But when it comes to silence, we have to make a chatbot train in that case, that what is Samuel Beckett's meaning of silence, and how he used silence, and what he meant by that, and how we are interpreting silence. That all stuff we have to feed the AI chatbots. Then maybe we are able to get the idea of how the AI chatbots are capable of capturing the silence.
So, Dhatri, my question is that if Waiting for Godot resists meaning and embraces absurdity, can an AI trained on logic and coherence ever authentically analyze it without imposing false structure on or intent?
Okay, so I have already mentioned that there are, with the help of chatbots, there are chances of multiple interpretation. So we can, like the same way, play is not giving any meaning, and we have open to make any interpretation. In that case, we have the polyphony of voices in the absurds Waiting for Godot. Similarly, we can ask chatbots in our manner to generate our meaning. So the how the prompt is generated in bed prompt is given. In that case, the interpretation is generated. So in that case, there are possible chances of having a multiplicity of meaning. So that also can complement the idea of that how the one meaning is not possible. Similarly, if we talk about how this trained on logic and coherence, uh, false structure or intent, there are chances that if the question or the prompt is very much complex to for the chatbots, then there are chances that it provide very general answer, or very much kind of a surface level answer. So in that case, we have to dig deep to get the idea. So by having more better prompt, we can get the idea and have multiple meaning as well.
Okay, there is one online question from a PhD scholar. Kishore Chaudhary is asking, if you use AI for literary analysis, do you think that it would impact the analytical mind of the humans, or would it enhance the critical vision of humans? What do you think of this use of AI?
So talking about how this impacted the mind analytical skill of the person. So if we are using this AI chatbots, our role come at the center. As I have already many a time mentioned that our role is at the center. Another thing, we can get the idea that we have very shallow understanding of the topic, and AI chatbots can help to have a deeper understanding. Or many a time we have happened that we are studying under one teacher, they are giving us their ideas, so we are only getting that idea. But when we are doing literary analysis with the help of chatbots, we get multiple that interpretation which is we haven't even thought of. So that is something that makes this AI chatbot or even the literary analysis more in a way supplementary. And if I'm talking about how it enhances the critical vision of human, then here also comes the role of ours, the person who is prompting. Because if the person is using the AI chatbots, the given ideas by AI chatbots, the interpretation, and making their own interpretation, then it enhances definitely the critical vision. But if the person is just in generally going through that and getting the things done, then there is chances that the critical vision may not get that much of enhancement. So I have
Okay, you can, there is a second part of the question also, which you can read later on and respond also. When you do analysis in the core chapters, at that time, the works that are reviewed earlier, that all and their arguments should be used to prove the point that this is where it is visible, it is falsified. You agree with that, you disagree, anything that happens. But that should be
sir,
discussed.
I have edited the draft.
Edited the right. In that you have added
Yes,
this
sir,
part.
yes.
Okay. So that is why literature review should be used in the analysis. It is not that you agree with everything, and you have to disagree. That is very good point also. So whatever you have reviewed, then you can say that in my analysis, I do not agree with that point, and you can put your analysis also. Okay. Next presentation is by Darshan. Yes? And Darshan is going to make a presentation on his research on the exploration of existentialism in Samuel Beckett's selected plays, a study of absurdity, isolation, and the search for meaning.
So very good afternoon, everyone. I am Darshan VAGH, and I am here with my presentation of dissertation, the exploration of existentialism in a Samuel Beckett selected plays, a study of absurdity, isolation, and the search for meaning. This is my academic information. So the chapter 1. I have taken 3 plays of Beckett to following this study. First is Waiting for Godot, second is Endgame, and third is Happy Days. In these 3 plays, we get to see the absurdity, meaninglessness, and all the elements of existential philosophy. We see the Beckett's sparse settings, fragmented dialogues, and static plot embody existential uncertainty and reinforcing themes of isolation and repetition. Uh, and we see the language and the masterful use of silence by Beckett. And we often talk about a lot about existentialism and how it impacted, and but the thing is we often survive this existentialism. So for that, there is a very beautiful exchange of dialogue in Waiting for Godot, where Estragon says that we always find something I did it to give us the impression we exist, and Vladimir replies that yes, yes, we are magician. And philosophical foundation, where I have used several theories. First is Soren Kierkegaard's theory of subjective and experience and leap of faith. Beckett's character persists, depicts uncertainty and suffering, mirroring Kierkegaard's idea of constructing personal meaning in a world without inherent purpose. Second is Friedrich Nietzsche's famous theory that God is dead and will to power. The absence of God is waiting for Godot symbolizes the existential idea that ultimate salvation will never come. The characters must create meaning for themselves. Third is Heidegger's Dasein, means being there. Characters in Endgame and Happy Days confront their morality, and Hum, Klaus, and Winnie's existence reflect Heidegger's concept of facility and inescapable existential condition. Third is Camus' myth of Sisyphus. Vladimir and Estragon's endless waiting mirror the absurd struggle of Sisyphus. Theory they persist, depict futility, embodying Camus' idea of embracing the absurd. And lastly, the Sartre's concept of radical freedom and bad faith. We see that Beckett's character, often trapped in a repetitive, meaningless action, reflect Sartre's idea of bad faith, where individuals fail to embrace their radical freedom and responsibility. This is my hypothesis and research question. My chapter 2 is a literature review, where we see that I have gone through many sources, and Beckett's, where we see that Beckett's plays influenced by existentialism depict a universe without inherent meaning, where characters struggle with absurdity, freedom, and isolation, reflecting the ideas from Sartre, Camus, and Nietzsche and Heidegger. The theater of absurd, to which Beckett's belong, challenged traditional storytelling with fragmented dialogues, minimalistic settings, and cyclic narrative emphasizing existential uncertainty. Character like Vladimir Estragon in Waiting for Godot, Hum and Chloe in Endgame, and Winnie and Happy Days, embodying the human condition through repetitive, futile action that mirror existential struggle. Beckett's language, marked by silence, contradiction, and nonsensical exchanges, illustrate the failure of communication and the difficulty of imposing order on a chaotic world. Despite bleak themes, Beckett's work highlight resilience, showing that even in the indifferent universe, individuals persist, making choices the finding moment of meaning in absurdity. This is my research gap for the dissertation is that if the most existing studies analyze Beckett's plays through the lens of absurdism and theatrical innovations, then there is a need to explore their deeper existential dimensions, particularly the philosophical influence of Sartre, Camus, and Kierkegaard. If prior research focuses on meaninglessness and despair, then further analysis is required to examine how Beckett's character navigate existential crises through resilience, repetitive actions, and fragmented communication. If Beckett's minimalistic settings and cyclic narrative have been widely discussed in dramatic theory, then their role reinforcing existential isolation and the paradox of human preservation remains an area for further investigation. My chapter 3 deals with the analysis of Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Waiting for Godot portrays the existential themes through Vladimir and Estragon's endless wait, symbolizing the humanity's search for meaning in an indifferent world. The play reflects Sartre's bad faith, where characters avoid accepting their radical freedom and responsibility for their existence. Camus' idea of the absurd is central here, and as the character seek meaning in a meaningless world, yet continue to waiting despite Godot's absence. The repetitive and cyclic structure reinforces existential despair, highlighting the monotony and the uncertainty of human life. Through minimal setting, fragmented dialogues, and the unresolved waiting, Beckett critiques the human condition, forcing the audience to confront existential uncertainty. My fourth chapter is analysis of remaining two play Endgame and Happy Days, where we see that Endgame Beckett presents a world where characters are physically and psychologically confined, mirroring the existential themes of Sartre and Camus. The repetitive interaction between Hum and Chloe highlights the absurdity of human existence. The master-servant relationship in Endgame illustrates the mutual dependence and resentment. Hum exerts authority despite this helplessness, while Chloe, through physically able to live, remains psychologically trapped. The play's cyclic structure reinforces the idea of stagnation and futility. Hum and close routine repeat endlessly, reflecting the Camus myth of Sisyphus, where life is seen as a meaningless cycle. The setting of Endgame, a confined space with small windows, symbolizes isolation and existential stagnation. The characters' inability to change their situation highlights Sartre's notion of self deception and fear of freedom. The dialogue in Endgame is marked by circulatory contradiction and hesitation, failure of language to create meaning. The characters speak not to communicate but to feel the void of their existence. Hum's storytelling reflects his desperate attempt to impose meaning on an indifferent world. His recollection of beauty contrasts with the bleak reality of Endgame, exposing the futility of nostalgia. And Clause's repeated threat to live but ultimately inaction exemplify the existential dilemma of free will. He represents individual who recognize their suffering yet choose the familiarity to despair over the uncertainty of change. As we see the existential elements in the happy days. In the happy days, Winnie's optimistic outlook contrasts with the despair in Endgame. Despite her gradual interrupt in the earth, she clings to small routines to sustain a sense of purpose. Winnie's resilience embodies Camus' absurd hero. She acknowledges the futility of her condition but continues nonetheless, finding a solace in a trivial ritual and nostalgic memories. The breakdown of communication between Winnie and Willie highlights the existential isolation. Winnie's endless monologues contrast with the Willie's silence, underscoring the failure of language of bridge emotional distance. Time is an oppressive force here, and the relentless trolling of the bell structure Winnie's life, reinforcing the absurdity notion that exists in a cyclic of repetition without progress. Winnie's resilience on memory reflects the paradox of the past as the both of source of comfort and painful reminder of a loss. Her fragmented recollection reinforces the tension between nostalgia and the reality of decline. As we see the combined elements in both the this text, the use of humor differs in both the plays. Endgame and employs dark, cynical humor to highlight despair, while Happy Days uses irony as a Winnie's cheerful attitude to contrast the sharply with her interrupt, marking her suffering even more poignant. And Endgame and Happy Days depict different existential responses. Hum and Chloe surrender to despair, while we see that Winnie clings to ritual and self-delusion to create a sense of meaning. Beckett denies conventional resolution in both the plays, leaving characters suspended and uncertainty. While Endgame presents unrelentless despair, Happy Days suggests that endurance and however absurd can be form of resistance. And as we see that Beckett never actually provides a solace ending. It always provides his audience to interpret the things. And as there is a famous quote of Kierkegaard that life can be only understood backward, but it must be lived in forward. And in conclusion of my dissertation, Samuel Beckett's play Waiting for Godot, Endgame, and Happy Days explore existential themes reflecting Sartre's concept of freedom and inaction, Camus' philosophy of the absurd, and Kierkegaard's idea of faith and isolation. His use of minimalistic settings, fragmented dialogues, and cyclic narrative challenges traditional storytelling, reinforcing the uncertainty and alienation of the human existence. And Beckett's work transcends mere despair, embodying both nihilism and endurance, compelling audience to confront existential dilemmas without offering a clear resolution. The limitation of my this dissertation would be that the key limitation I would say that of this study is it focuses on existentialist themes while overlooking Beckett's engagement with the linguistic experimentation and narrative uncertainty. Beckett's use of fragmented dialogue, silences, and self-referential structure challenges not only existential reading but also traditional notion of meaning and coherence in literature. The further research could analyze Beckett's lesser explored works such as Molly, Molan Dies, and The Unnameable to provide a more comprehensive understanding of how existential themes manifest across his entire body of work, not just his theatrical production. And another, would I say that investigating different theatrical interpretations of Beckett's plays across various cultural and linguistic contexts could reveal how existentialist themes are adapted, performed, and understood worldwide, offering a fresh insight into their philosophical and artistic impact. And if I would talk about the learning outcome, that there are basic learning outcomes that I have gained a good command over how to research and how to write, and what are the basics of research writing. And as I talk about the philosophical learning outcome, that while doing this existential uh, as a dissertation, it always questions that we always say that in the existentialism, the nihilism comes, that nothing is, everything is meaningless and all that thing. One of my presentation, I have said that it was on the spot thought that this presentation, this blog writing, all these things are meaningless. But it was my first encounter with the existential theory, and it always fascinating that whenever we come across any philosophical ideologies, it always disturbs us, and the first impression is never the thorough understanding of that particular ideology. So after going through much of this existential theory, I've come to know that this everything is absurd. That is the main concept, and we have to find meaning in that. So doing this absurd is, we have to classify the absurd, that doing this blog, doing this dissertation, it is a progress. So it is a good absurd rather than scrolling the reels. So that would be my learning outcome. So there is a quote that helped me a lot while whenever this nihilism comes while I was doing this dissertation. It is from Friedrich Nietzsche, that he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. This is my references, and thank you. Now I would like to have your questions.
Darshan, my question is for you. What new insight does your analysis add to the existing field of existentialism with your analysis of Waiting for Godot?
I don't think there is anything that existential philosophy is a vast field, and through existential philosophy, I have tried to see that Beckett's work, how Beckett see existentialism, and in my point of view, but Beckett always wants his audience to see that how his audience is interpreting existentialism. More often, I would say that he wants his audience to question, but so that would be my answer.
So, Darshan, my question is that how do the themes of Waiting for Godot reflect our experiences of uncertainty, uncertainty and waiting in today's world?
Uncertainty is quite common, that we can take as many examples as we want. Many times sir gives us a date and then it changes. That is also an uncertainty. So there are many uncertainties, like we never know. So it is quite common. It is quite common theme, and it can be shown very often in real world, in today's world.
Okay, so the question that DHATRI asked also, what new thing you try to see? So when you generally look at existentialism in Beckett, it is there. What are we trying to research? What is the gap that we try to fill? So if you have to concentrate on the research gap, where you have mentioned that You want to see specifically the philosophical influences of Sartre, Albert Camus, and Kierkegaard. So in the core analysis, you have to bring their ideas. Which idea of Sartre, which idea of Albert Camus, Kierkegaard is found in the play. So in that core chapters, if you add that, then you can answer that question. That this is what I am seeing. I am exactly pinpointing that what way Sartre, Camus, and Kierkegaard's ideas are found in Beckett's plays. So one idea from the philosophers and a quote from the play. That if it is not still done. So that part you will have to
Sorry,
do.
I have done it in
Yeah, edited the
edited,
next
I-
part. Okay, that is good then. So this you concentrate. So in that question you have to tell this, that these ideas I am trying to open, because existentialism is a very broad idea and people generally speak about all philosophers together and ideas together. Exactly what is the difference, because they all are not similar also. So that if you say, then that research is relevant, otherwise it is meaningless. The research itself becomes meaningless, futile. The only thing we can say that I saved some time from watching the reels when I was engaged with that. Otherwise there is no other fruitful outcome of this also. Okay, the next presentation now we will have is from Bhumi, and that is her side of the story, feminist and cultural narratives in the retellings of mythical women.
So, Indian mythologist Devdutt Patnaik often says that within infinite myths lies the eternal truth. Who sees it all? And I have been questioning, what if all the myths that we have been seeing are from the same lens? So, hello everyone, I am BHUMIBA GOHIL, and today I am presenting her side of the story, feminist and cultural narratives in the retellings of mythical women. These are my chapterization, and let me begin with what are myths. So I'm sure none of you are quite unaware of what they are. They are these cultural narratives, the stories that have been passed down, and then we ask, what is the purpose of myth retelling? If the story is told once, why narrate it again? So Lyotard in his work mentions the grand narratives. These grand narratives, the stories we have, in Indian example, we can see the Mahabharata, Ramayana. These grand narratives control the society, how society thinks, and our retellings, the contemporary retellings, are a sort of challenge to that idea. They are presenting their alternative perspective. And that is why we retell the myth again and again to question something. So the history of myth retelling is not, we can say, very recent, because we have seen the Sanskrit dramas who retell the myths of Ramayana and Mahabharata. We have seen the Greek dramas who retell their stories like Oedipus Rex and everything. Recently, there has been a rise in modern retellings of myth. We can see it from the Kavita Kane's work, we have Amish Tripathi's work, we have Devdutt Patnaik's work, Anand Neelkanthan's work. In the same manner, there is a rise in Greek mythology as well, mythical retellings as well. We have the Thousand Ships and the Tears of the Girls, and so many novels on specific characters. We have it on Medea, Ariadne. So for my dissertation, I have chosen 4 works, 2 from Indian mythological narrations, that the Palace of Illusion and the Fisher Queen's Dynasty, 2 from Greek myth, the Penelopiad and Circe. And my theoretical framework is feminist study. This is my hypothesis and my research questions. Through this dissertation, my research question, my objective is to see how modern retellings of myth reinterpret and challenge the traditional feminine archetype, and to see in what ways retellings provide agency and voice to marginalized feminine figures in myths. For my literature review, I have analyzed the feminist theoretical framework. I've analyzed the feminist works like Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex, Judith Butler's Gender Trouble, and Elaine Showalter's the literature of their own. I have also analyzed Greek mythological retellings articles, the scholarly articles by them, based on my works, the works I've chosen, and the Indian mythological retellings works. And after all of this, I have found the research gap that while significant research has been conducted on the feminist reinterpretation of mythological figures, much of it remains limited to a singular cultural context. So, in my dissertation, I have taken two mythological traditions, Indian and Greek, and I have tried to analyze them together. So, my chapter 3 begins with the analysis of Draupadi and Satyavati in feminist retelling. Draupadi, we see, gets her voice and agency in the Palace of Illusion novel. She is the narrator of the novel, and this, of course, gives her the power to tell her own story. We see how she questions, she gets an education, she defies the gender roles. And here is a quote by her that, "And who decides that a woman's highest purpose was to support men? A man, I would wager. Myself, I plan on doing other things with my life." So we see that she's such an ambitious person. She wants to defy the gender roles. And yet, somewhere we see she's trapped in the patriarchal system because there is a Swayamvar of hers. And she actually likes Karna and wants to get married to him. But she's not allowed by her brother, by her father. And so she is married to Arjun. And then later, Arjun and his family decide that now she's going to marry all the 5 Pandavas. So we see that there is this powerlessness in her marriage. And we see that her daima, there is this interaction as well, that her daima says that kings in ancient time have many queens, you have the same right, you have many husbands. And Draupadi says that this is not so, because when the kings have multiple marriages, they have power in that marriages. I am treated like a object here, I'm passed around. And she's very much troubled by this. Then we see her response to Vastraharan, that and she says that she has 5 husbands, but none of them came to save her. And she is put in the position from the birth that she cannot really save herself. So we see her powerlessness, and we see that her perspective on heroism. She says that her husband will take revenge, but that would be on such a time that when it will give them glory. So we see her perspective on heroism. We see her quick intellect and emotional perception. And later we see her realizing her own importance in her marriage. She says that marriage to me had protected them, the Pandava brothers, from the murderous wrath of Duryodhan. I'd play a crucial role in bringing them to their destiny. If they were pearls, I was the gold wire on which they were strung. So we see that from a very powerless figure, she develops her own importance. She understands her power, and she becomes a political figure and strategist. Another character is Satyavati. Now, in the original Mahabharata, Satyavati is sidelined as a character, or sometimes she is villainized. But we see that in this novel, she's given much power. We see she is the main character, and from the very beginning, she analyzes this gender discrimination. Kavita Kanesh points this out through Satyavati, that Satyavati was a twin, and her twin brother, and both of them were actually illegitimate children of a king. So her brother was adopted by the king, and she was sent to her maternal home, which is her mother had died, and her maternal uncle was very poor. So she says that I have to work for my earnings daily. I have to carry people around, and my twin brother, enjoys being the prince only because he's a boy. So we see the gender discrimination. There is also class inequality, which is shown in this novel. We see that nobles and common peoples, the divide between them is very much present in this novel. She points out that nobles live in the shiny palaces, they live a glorious life, and we are made to live here, and it is very unjust situation. We see her struggles with body images, that because she lives there, she's a fisher girl, so her body stinks of fish, and she's always very much she's very conscious about that, and she's black skinned, so she's also discriminated because of that. But we see Satyavati's defining trait, which is her ambition. So here I would like to quote her. "Why do we have such small eyes to see the large sky, and too small ears to hear the wildest storms? No, sir, We can make our future with our hands. So we see that she's a very ambitious person, and she's also, when she later becomes a queen, she's also very politically accurate, and she has very much strategies and such things. But if it was done by a king, then people would have praised him for his shrewdness, for being such a strategical king. But since it is done by a queen, she is, we can say, questioned for her morality. People judge her, and as I said, villainize her. But we see that Satyavati believes that a queen needs to be more sensible than just sensitive. And we see Satyavati's role as the king maker. She comes from a very small background, and she's from a very poor family. But she decides that she does not want to stay there. She decides that for her future children, she thinks that I want the throne for them. I do not just want to be a consort of the king. I want to be queen of Hastinapur in my own right. I want my children to be the kings of Hastinapur. And we see that Satyavati acts as a king maker. Through this, we see the critique of patriarchal narratives in mythology. We find out how little power women have in our mythological stories. And we see that there is Satyavati's imperfections are also recognized by Kavita Kane, but we see the power behind the throne. Satyavati has the power behind of the throne, and we see Kavita Kane's feminist message that it is not actually. She names the novel this, the Fisher Queen's Dynasty, because we live in a patriarchal system, so we think that they are actually Kuru dynasty. But Bhishma Pitama in this novel says that the Kuru dynasty ended with me and my brothers. This is your dynasty, because they were actually children of Vedvyas. So we see that in actuality, she's a matriarch of the Kuru dynasty. It's not actually Kuru dynasty, it is her dynasty. But she's not allowed this power because she's a woman. My chapter 4 focuses on the reimaginings of Penelope and Circe. Now, Penelope is the wife of famous hero Odysseus. We all know him as this very clever person, very shrewd man. He can get out of any situation. He can remove any blame from himself. And in this novel, the Penelope, written by Margaret Atwood, we see that Penelope starts. She's the narrator, and she starts in the underworld. She has died already, and she says she feels very betrayed because she says that I knew that my husband was this lying cheater person, but I didn't know that he would do that on me as well. And she does that because of Odysseus is seen as this very glorified hero, but Penelope is seen as just this faithful wife. And even in that, she says that, and what did I amount to once the official version gained ground? An edifying legend, a stick used to beat other women with. She says that this is what my story does, that other women are questioned for their decision, and they are told that you behave like Penelope. And she says that I don't want that. And she takes all this power back by becoming the first person narrator. And she says that now all the others have run out of air. It's my turn to do a little story making. I owe it to myself. So that is how we see her taking her power back. In this novel, we explore her childhood, her loneliness, and everything. All of this is not explored in the Odyssey. We see her struggles in Ithaca. There is a burden of rule, how she's ruling people. We see the burden of waiting. And of course, the suitors, that after Odysseus did not come for a long time, there were suitors starting, and they were putting this pressure on Penelope that now you have to marry again to one of us. They wanted her empire. They wanted to rule Ithaca for themselves. And we see that Penelope struggling through all of this. And we have that even in the original one, we have that when Odysseus returns, Penelope does not really recognize him. But Penelope says that how can I not recognize my own husband? And here also she takes the power back that I recognized him, but I did not reveal it because he wanted himself to be, he was very proud of his own bubble of his, and that is why I pretended not to recognize him. Because Penelope is given voice in this novel, we also see her resentment towards her cousin Helen, and because of her, she's always compared to Helen. Helen was more beautiful of the both of them, so she's always compared to them. She presents this burden of that, and she also shows this jealousy, rivalry, and she resents Helen that because of her husband had to go away for war. And another very interesting thing that Atwood does is she gives the chorus maids a voice. Now, chorus maids are something, so there were 12 maids, and when Odysseus returns, he blames them that you have been sleeping with the suitors and you have been unfaithful to your master, and that is why he executes them. and he kills these 12 innocent girls without the fault of their own. And here we see their voice as well, that after every chapter of Penelope, they work as chorus, and they give the voice to themselves, that we are also the victim of injustice of Odysseus. Another character from Greek myth we have is Circe. Now, Circe is also a very minor character. She's shown as this witch who lives on an island, and she turns Odysseus's men to pigs, and then she has a love affair with Odysseus. He stays there for a while and then he leaves. And she's not to be confused with another same kind of character, Calypso. But Circe, Madeline Miller in her novel Circe presents this, that Circe is not just any ordinary witch or any ordinary person. She is daughter of Helios, which is sun god. And we see that she is given the first person narration power. She does her own storytelling, and we find out about her story, how she was alienated in childhood, how she was exiled for witchcraft, and later how she worked on witchcraft. Witchcraft she defines as not this divine power that you don't have to work for, because witchcraft is earned by working very hard on it. So she's a very, we can say, a self-made person. And there's the question of transformation of men into pigs, that in the original version, this was very much highlighted. And Madeline Miller questions this, that without any fault, why would she just turn men into pigs? And then she's given this backstory that there were sailors on her island, they raped her, and because of that, she turned them into pigs. And from then on, she used to do this to the people who actually abused her, not just without any fault of their own. So we see this, and we see the female perspective of Circe in her story. We see how she begins with a very timid, obedient person. She's sitting at the feet of her father, Helios's feet, and she says that she's described as this very unremarkable person, that she would not surmount to anything. And then she becomes a witch in her own right. She gains her own power. And in the end, we see there is a final act of agency with her, that when Helios comes and questions her, she used to be so scared of Helios that she would not talk to him. And now she threatens him that you cannot guess what spells I have cast, what poisons I have gathered to protect myself against you, and how your power may rebound upon your head. Who knows what is in me? Will you find out? And she has, from this very timid person, she has this complete arc of being a very powerful person. So we see her story in this. In my concluding chapter, I have compared all of these, and these are my key findings, that the feminine archetype across cultures, I have seen how traditional myths confine women to these rigid roles, that they are either chaste wife or vengeful queen or a dangerous seductress, but feminist retellings gives them their individuality, their depth, and makes them the complex person that they truly are. We see voice and narrative authority. As I said, that in all three of the novels, the narrators are the characters themselves, and this actually shifts the perspective of the story, and we find out the actual narrative authority of them. We see agency and resistance, that female characters are portrayed in the original myth, they are portrayed as passive, but we see through these retellings that they gain whatever power they can, and they try to resist all of these injustice that is happening towards them. We see sexuality and body politics through Draupadi's virginity boon as well, that she's given this boon for virginity, that she'll gain her virginity every day. And she says that I don't think this is for me, this is for the benefits of my husband. In the same manner, Circe also used her magic, as I said, that she transformed men to pigs, so to defend herself. So we see this body politics, we see maternal figures, that how Penelope, Circe, and Satyavati the most, I think, they take this motherhood very seriously. They do not take it as a reproductive duty, but they try to gain political strategy for their own children, as Satyavati does, that I want the throne for my children. We also see political power and strategic intelligence that women are not often credited for, that they are told that even if they are queens, they are told that, yeah, they are just pawns in the game, and they are just silent characters. And here we see their political strategies. And the universality of feminist retellings, we see how across cultures, feminist revisions expose shattered patterns of female subjugation, resistance, and demonstrating the myths, whether Indian or Greek, have long used a women's voice to uphold patriarchal ideals, and are now challenged by authors like Divakurni, Kane, Atwood, and Miller. There are a few limitations of my study. The cultural scope is limited, as I pointed out, that I've only analyzed two cultural narratives, the Indian and Greek. So there are many more mythical women from other cultural that can be explored. There is also lack of intersectional analysis. I have only focused on feminist retellings, so feminist theory, sorry, and so there are many other theories that can be applied. There is also absence of reader reception in my analysis. I have done textual analysis, but the reader reception can also be explored. So this is for the research scope of my topic. We can do comparative studies with other mythologies, and we can see incorporating other theories. We can add reader reception. We can see we can adapt. We can see how these women are adapted in other visual media. So we have series, movies of these. So we can analyze that. And there is also the possibility of analyzing the male characters of these female retellings. We can see how they are portrayed. So Bhishma in the Fisher Queen's Dynasty, or Odysseus in the Penelopiad. And yeah, these are my bibliographical references. And now for your questions. Thank you.
So, Bhumi, my question is that are feminist and cultural spins on myth truly fresh, or do they secretly keep old power traps alive in new disguises?
I would say they are fresh in terms of that they shed the light on the past, these old powers that they used to be, because they are very much present here. We see how women have to fight against it, how they struggle against it, these characters. So I would say they are fresh in terms of they shed light on this, but they are very much like they are. These retellings point out that these were the old powers, and these were what women were resisting.
Bhumi, my question is, how does this comparative analysis of different culture mythologies provides new insights? Did you use a different methodology, particularly for Indian texts, as Shishir Kumar Das mentioned?
So they provide new insights in terms of, as I said, that because I've analyzed two cultural mythical women, they shed light on how there are similarities in both of the retellings. We see how some things are done similarly, so they are given the voice as narrators and everything. So these new things come to light. As for methodology, I have used, I think my dissertation would fall under the German School of Comparative Studies, because I have analyzed them from different cultural contexts. So no, I have not used Sisir Kumar Das suggested for Indian texts.
Okay, there is one online question from the former student Amisha. As this topic is driving my curiosity to know what the core distinction did you find in between these two mythologies that are Indian and Greek while analyzing regarding the representation of women.
I think the key insight that I found is that women are always, we can say, seen in this same type of stereotype. They are seen in the same mold, that either they have to be like these very we can say silent queens. So if I give you the example of the Penelope, so she is seen as that. In the same manner, we have Sita, that she's seen as the silent character, this very perfect woman, that is how a woman has to be. And then people often say to other women, even nowadays, that you have to be like Sita, you have to be silent. And they see women like anybody who questions. So they say that there are these sayings that if Draupadi had remained silent, even in any one place of Mahabharata, then Mahabharata wouldn't have happened. So we see that merely them speaking for their own rights is considered wrong. And this is the same thing we see in Circe also, which is a Greek character. So we see that in Circe also this happens, that she is blamed for things, that she turns men into pigs, she lives in an isolated island, she's having affairs with Odysseus, but we don't see the behind of the scenes, that why she's doing that. Nobody tries to understand that. So we see that there is this stereotyping of women. Even in Satyavati's character, we see that she's blamed for this, that because of her Bhishma Pitama didn't get to be king, that she's a very selfish woman, you don't have to be like her. Because by taking the name of Satyavati, people give this advice to women that you don't have to be too ambitious. Look at what happened to Satyavati because she was too ambitious. So I would say this is what I found.
Okay, fine. So the next presenter now is Akash, and he is going to make a presentation on Welcome to the Desert of the Real, Hyperreality and Blurred Boundaries in Postmodern Hollywood.
Hello everyone, I am Akash CHAVDA, and today I will make a presentation on my dissertation topic entitled Welcome to the Desert of the Real, Hyperreality and Blurred Boundaries in Postmodern Hollywood. This is the chapterization of my dissertation, and let us start understanding this topic with the introduction. In the introductory chapter, I have cleared the theoretical framework of my subsequent chapters, and starting with the main thing, what is hyperreality? Hyperreality is a concept theorized by French philosopher Jean Baudrillard, and it is a concept which says that the boundaries between what is real and what is the representation of the real, which is simulation, is blurred. So this is what hyperreality, and this concept he has given in simulacra and simulation. And we know what is postmodernism is. Like it rose against the reaction of modernism, and in the postmodernism we have seen in the many novels that how stories are being told, like they are fragmented narratives, often non-linear and all those kind of things. So these kind of experimentation has been adapted into the postmodern cinema also by the French directors. They have done such kind of things, and Baudrillard in his works says that as for the cinema, I am still very much in love with it, but it has reached a despairing state. Despairing state in the sense that the cinema in contemporary time does not portray the reality, but it rather constructs the reality. It gives the model, the mapping, with no origin of the truth. So in this way, the cinema has lost its authenticness of the reality. And this led to the crisis of cinema in the age of reality. And instead of serving as a mirror that faithfully reflects the real world, cinema is now, as Baudrillard says, engages in a cold collage. There is a kind of inversion effect in cinema between the reality and the representation of the reality. And for this, I have selected the three movies as my primary text: The Matrix, which explores the controlled simulation; The Truman Show, which mediates the reality of its protagonist; and Fight Club, in which we can see the identity crisis. And particularly for the Fight Club, I have taken help of the work of James Fredrickson's The Logic of Late Capitalism and Hypermarket, which was theorized by Jean Baudrillard. And this is my hypothesis and the research question, like how these movies uses the narratives and visual techniques to construct this hyper-real world, and in what ways does it challenge the notions of traditional reality and simulations, and how the characters experiences this hyper-reality and manipulation, and how it reflects the broader cultural experiences, and how these films utilizes the hyper-reality to critique and satirizes the contemporary consumer culture and social structure. And what does this film suggest about the agency and autonomy in the hyper-real and simulated worlds? So in my literature review, I have gone through the related review of the literature, and what I found is that these three movies have been widely analyzed by the hyper-reality, and there are also sub points also, like media constructs and controlled reality and voyeurism and surveillance. These are all the things that have been reviewed and analyzed in their work. But the critical gap which remains that the psychoanalytical dimensions of the rebellion, how do the protagonists rebel, and do they have the agency, or do they have genuine freedom, or the resistance itself is become commodified in the postmodern movies. So that we will see, and are they able to escape from it or not. So my chapter 3 delves into the two movies, The Truman Show and The Matrix. In these two movies, the common theme is hyperreality, constructed world, and media control. We know that in The Truman Show, we have the example of the sea heaven town, which is simulated town in which Truman was living. And for The Matrix, we have the digital simulation, and the movie envisions the quite bleak and dystopian vision of the future in which humanity is entrapped by the sentience, the artificial intelligence. So in this way, these both movies constructs the world. And also, as for the media control, we know that in the Truman Show also, not only the electronic media but print media is also in the controlled is in the controlling position to prevent Truman from escaping the sea heaven town. And as Noon says in his articles, the internet, virtual reality, and postmodern media culture exemplifies Baudrillard's idea of concept of simulation, wherein models do not reflect any tangible reality but supplants it entirely. And this is very particular in these two movies, which constructs the artificial realities that dictates their protagonist's existence. Well, in the Truman Show, we have the character of Christoph, who can be seen as a omniscient presence in the life of Truman Show, which does not allow any private moment in the life of Truman. And he can be seen as a Foucauldian panoptic gaze. The panopticism is a concept is articulated by Michel Foucault, which is the ideal prison from which prisoners can be seen through any angle and all the time. In similar way, the Christoph sees Truman of 24/7, and for The Matrix, where artificial intelligence governs the human consciousness, these both films operates on the mechanism of the control. To continue to add more onto the role of surveillance and control and postmodern aesthetics of the movie, director Peter Weir and cinematographer Peter BHUMIBA collaborated to construct an artificial world in the movie Truman Show. They have created quite meticulously constructed ideal world, which is kind of a utopic world for Truman. If you have watched the movie, then you might get to know that how the ambience of these this utopic town, Sea Heaven, is constructed. They were after the heightened reality, the simulated world for Truman. And at the heart of all of the spectacle is Christoph, who is a controller, as I have said, who dictates the Truman's life and who takes the agency on behalf of Truman. And he can literally control everything in relation to the Truman's life. Like there is one scene where he can start rain anywhere in the town, and also he can also change weather at his whim for Truman. And as for The Matrix, we can say Morpheus says that the Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, and it is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth, blind you from the reality. And I have done also the Lacanian psychoanalysis, in which there are the 4 stages: mirror stage, imagery, symbolic, and the real. Just like an infant who sees him or herself in the mirror and have a kind of construct of unified whole. In the similar way, Truman also sees himself in the mirror and believes that his identity is totally formed. He is a uniform identity who is asserting his agency. But as he moved through the imaginary and symbolic stages of the Lacan, he comes to know that his identity is a fragmented one. And this particular scene where the studio star falls onto him, then he comes to realize that no, there is something wrong with his life. There is something wrong with the town he lives in. So in that way, it helps to this kind of entering into symbolic realm of language and cultural construct. He comes to know that no, there is something wrong with it, and this leads to his rebellion in the later part of the movie. And as for Neo's fragmented existence, it existed within the structural order of the matrix, which is also similar to the mirror stage. And in his imaginary order, Neo is a corporate employee who thinks that his life is good in this kind of a corporate employee. But later in the scene comes that he has to choose a red pill or a blue pill, and red pills will allows him to confront the reality, and so he chooses the red pill. And to add, in the breaking free of the protagonist, rebellion and liberation, we can see that many characters in the movie tries to prevent Truman from seeking the outer world, the reality. And the Christoph says that as Truman grew up, we were forced to manufacture ways to keep him on the island. And one of the things that Christoph does is that he staged the death of Truman's father by drowning him into the river, and by which he tries to prevent Truman to getting out from the utopic town of Sea Heaven. And Neo's godlike transformation also suggests that he has merely assumed a new role within an ongoing struggle, rather than achieving a definite liberation. In the psychoanalytic struggle of the Neo, we can see that he moved from the self-doubting phase, and he knew that there is something wrong with his life. So he confronted his self-doubt, and then he assumed the role of the new, which is the liberation of which he will do later on, the liberation of the humanity. And Miskulon and Berselin says that Neo's journey is a profound allegory of the psychoanalytic struggles and the process, emphasizing on the active confrontation over the passive escape. Just like Truman does, he passively lives his life, and at the very later end, he asserts his identity, and he wants to came out of that life. But with Neo, he confronts his identity actively within the hyperreal system of the matrix. And my chapter 4 talks about Fight Club. And Fight Club, we know that it is a movie directed by David Fincher, and it is adapted from the novel of the same name by Chuck Palahniuk. And in this movie, we can say it is a cinematic manifesto against the hollow premises of consumer capitalism. And as Heffernan says in one of his articles, that this movie is one of the particular movie where cinematic adaptation is very faithful to the novel, and even it gives the very idea of isolation, commodification, and the fragmented identity of the narrator Edward Norton, the very clear manner, more than clear from which portrayed in the novel. So self in this movie, the self is no longer defined by the personal experiences, but by the product that one owns. In the theory of hypermarket, Baudrillard have said that there is the vast myriad of the things that are there to be consumed by the people, and in this kind of shopping experiences, the things of these things becomes more important, and this fractured identity leads the narrator to assert that everything is a copy of a copy of a copy, which aligns with the Baudrillard's idea of the simulation. And we can also say that, as Bradshaw and Jonathan said, that the mood of the Fight Club is in a one-way Zeitgeist time capsule for the drifting self-questioning the late 19th. We can say that this movie, Fight Club, encapsulates the very Zeitgeist of the 19th century, of the late capitalism, where everything is commodified, the culture itself is commodified, and in this movie, the identity is commodified of Edward Norton. And his insomnia and emotional detachment signifies not just personal oppressed, but a deeper alienation rooted in the late capitalism. And we can also understand this by the Freudian analysis of the Freudian psychoanalysis, where he says that id, ego, and superego, there are three parts of the psychoanalysis, in which id represented by the Tyler Durden, ego represented by the unnamed narrator, and the superego is a societal construct. It is a societal construct, and the narrator was not able to fulfill or satisfy the societal construct of the materialism. So that is why, to eradicate the materialism, the primary self, the primitive self of Tyler Durden, who is sinister, came out as a form of fight club, and he later also established the Project Mayhem. But it also becomes a kind of a cult military organization which demands blind obedience. So in this way, this act of resistance can be observed, and it is observed in this movie, into the very structure it opposes, the very structure it tries to dismantle. And to conclude my dissertation, contemporary cinema engages with the themes of surveillance, ideological control, and the crisis of identity in the world where the distinction between the real and the simulated has become increasingly blurred. And in such a hyper-real world, the perception is increasingly manufactured by the media, and perceived reality are fabricated, structured, designed to keep them passive. And every act of defiance risks become another mechanism that reinforces the very system. So the thing that we need to keep in mind, that we need to critically navigate the hyper-reality by living in it, and we have to be self-aware of hyper-reality. And the scope for the further research that we can do is the postmodern films influences audience perception, and we can do the audience reception studies also in this, to know more about how the hyper-reality engages with the people's life and how it shapes the people's view towards the hyper-reality. And this is my bibliography. And thank you.
Okay, by the time we get the question, you mentioned in your conclusion that the commodification of resistance in hyper-reality.
Yes, sir.
The illusion of liberation. What is that?
Yes, sir.
The commodification of resistance in hyper-reality. The illusion of liberation.
The illusion of liberation in the sense in the Fight Club is like that, sir. Like, as I've said, that Tyler Durden establishes the Project Mayhem, which in a way tries to dismantle the very material and commodified aspects of the hyper-real landscape, right? So in this way, he wants to eradicate the materialism aspect of that, but it does not do that. Rather, it demands the it demands the military obedience. The very things he wants to dismantle, he does the same thing, and that is why I have said that.
So you say that this commodification of resistance reveals a deeper issue, that the inability to fully escape the system. Baudrillard argued that in the desert of the real,
No, sir.
everything, including rebellion, becomes simulation. Even the act of rebel also is a mere simulation.
Yes, sir. In this case, we can say that. Can I get one more time the question? What is the question, sir?
In the same continuation, you are writing here in this page number 100. This commodification, you gave example of Fight Club and then Truman Show also. Of resistance reveals a deeper issue, that the inability to fully escape the system. Baudrillard argues that in the desert of the real, everything, including rebellion also, it becomes a mere simulation.
Yes, sir. First of all, that I have done the mistake that the book that was not written by Jean Baudrillard, it was written by Slavoj Žižek. So it was that mistake. And as for the hyperreal aspects, I would say that in the context of Project Mayhem, that is just a minute, sir. I want to think a couple of minutes. Yes, sir. Like the movie itself, as I have said, that it is a product of its time, right? So it also mirrors this kind of commodification, and as a movie, we can say that it critiques the commodification, and it also exists as a movie, which is a blockbuster movie. So it is sold to audience themselves as a spectacle. So in this way,
that argument you have explored a lot. So that also you are writing that this raises a troubling question. If rebellion itself can be commodified, How can individuals distinguish? How can individual distinguish genuine resistance from its simulated counterpart? Is it even possible to enact meaningful resistance in an environment where every radical gesture is at risk of being repurposed as entertainment or a marketing tool? So this is a very good argument, but you also are understanding that very well. When you are asked, you should be able to justify this argument which you are putting in conclusion point. So very resistance is taken as an act of entertainment for which the people can be kept busy, distracted in some way. That's how popular cinema plays a right. It tries to tell that it is giving a lesson of resistance, but actually it is also keeping people busy into something meaningless thing. So people get engaged into that act, but ultimately the very act of resistance is turned into commodity. That's a Marxist idea also, that mass cinema, how he tries to, what is the importance of mass cinema is this, that people do not realize that how that uses them as if they are involved into something significant, but actually they are also commodified, or it is a mere act of entertainment, and that becomes a part of marketing tool only. So it's a good point, but you make sure that you understand this argument very well also. Okay, next question is from... Yeah.
So, Akash, if given the choice, would you take the red pill and wake up to the uncomfortable truth, or stay in the comfortable illusion?
Well, it is a personal choice. So I would not confront the reality. I would rather take the blue pill and live in the illusion, the life we all wanted. And as Lata says, that people lives in the imaginary stages, and they want to like to be in the imaginary stages. They want illusion in their life. And he also says that without the imaginary stage, human life is not possible. So yeah, as many as all the peoples do like to remain in their own illusion. So, and we also have our own dreams and all kind of things that we cannot in reality fulfill, so that we can fulfill in illusions also. So I would take definitely blue pill.
Okay, let us take next question. You can reply in the comment, the question. So, Yashraj is the last presentation of this second session, and he is speaking on the philosophy of absurdity, identity, alienation, and human condition in Kafka's The Metamorphosis and Camus' The Stranger.
Hello everyone, I am Yashraj Soda, and on this seminar on interdisciplinary approaches in English studies, literature, theory and beyond, I am making my presentation on the philosophy of absurdity, identity and alienation, and the human condition in Kafka's Metamorphosis and Camus' The Stranger. Table of content. First, the introduction. The Stranger by Albert Camus. It is originally titled as Elle and Stranger. It was published in French in 1942. Later, it was translated into the English. It is a story of Marcel, who is the protagonist of the novel, who feels alienation and who is lives a life where he is a little bit, we can say, the more rational than the other people, more practical, or he does not have the emotional attachment toward the things. So in the later part, he faced the consequences of the same, and then at last he was killed by the government, or he is hanged because the crime he has committed by killing the The second novel I have taken is The Metamorphosis, which is of the Franz Kafka. It was in the novel we find the protagonist of the Gregor Samsa, who also faced the same towards in the family. He converted into the one insect, a big insect, as you can find in the picture also. And then how he find the familial consequences, how his family react towards that. So that we find in this, we find the concept of absurdity, explore the human quest for meaning in the indifferent universe. And the themes we find: alienation, identity, crisis, dehumanization, and human condition. Theoretical framework, I have taken the theory of absurdism of Albert Camus from the Myth of Sisyphus, existentialism from Sartre, Marxist alienation, Karl Marx, uncanny by Sigmund Freud, modern alienation in literature by George Lacan, and death of God and nihilism, Nietzsche, and leap of faith, Kierkegaard. Hypothesis of my research is how Kafka and Camus address the absurdity of existence through the characters of who experience profound alienation and identity loss, proposing that these themes reflect the broader human condition in an indifferent and absurd universe. The question that I am going to address, that how the both novel illustrate the philosophical concept of absurdity, how the protagonist face the alienation from the society and the family, and how does this reflect the existential themes, the of existential alienation, in what ways the both works challenge the reinforcement the traditional philosophical approach to finding the meaning in life, and what are the similarities, comparative study of this both novels. My objective of this research is to examine the conceptualize the represent existential absurdity through their protagonists' experiences, the identity and alienation in both the works, the compare and contrast between the two novels, to explore how the challenge the rational behavior in societal conformity, and to evaluate the role of family and society, how they influence the protagonists of the novel. In the literature review, I have reviewed some of the articles that I have mentioned here. And through that research gap, I find that the research has been done, but the themes on the themes of absurdity, alienation, and identity in the both novel. But the gaps I find that the role of the family and societal structure as the source of alienation in the text, direct comparative studies of these two novels, and the lack of psychological analysis in the protagonist's identity crisis, and how the family and the society plays a vital role in this identity crisis. So that is the research gap. Now, in the core analysis of the first novel, The Metamorphosis, chapter 3, the dehumanization and alienation theme, how this absurd theme we find in this novel. Uddin argues in his article that Gregor's physical change alienates him not only from his human form, but also from his family and the society, that the insect part that he has converted into, that how he alienates himself also, and how he alienates from the society and the family also. In the Greet, who is the sister of the protagonist, Gregor Samsa, he says that we must try to get rid of it. This it, rather than Gregor's name, signifies the complete dehumanization of the eyes of his family. Who the bond of the brother and sister were very good, but after the metamorphosis of the protagonist, we find that changes in the behavior changes in the family also. It can also be read as the metamorphosis of the Gregor Samsa, as well as the metamorphosis of the family and their response toward the response toward the main protagonist. In the later part, we find on the novel also, I quote, then right beside him, lightly tossed, something flew down and rolled in front of him. It was an apple. So when he comes out of his room, his father throws an apple to go him into his room. So that type of thing we also find. How we find the identity crisis and loss of self. Sweeney argues that the Gregor's consciousness, however, is clearly related to his human past. Secondly, insect character and the human character are unfused. So this humanoid, his past is presented as a human, but when he metamorphoses into the into some insect, then he cannot cope with the past and the present, and the identity crisis and loss of self that he face, and that can be also seen in the dialogue also. "It must go," cried Gregor's sister. "That's the only solution, father. You must try to get rid of the idea that this is Gregor." That she says that he is not the Gregor himself. He is something else. He is the insect. That stop considering him as a Gregor. In the beginning part, when he is converted into the insect, he asks himself, "What happened? What has happened to me?" He thought it was not a dream. That we also can find. Zhang argues, when space is squeezed out from nowhere, no way out is left for the individual. When the personal space and the familial condition that where he is living and where he belongs, it is also taken out from him. Where will he go? Later, we find what type of human condition he faced throughout the novel. Despite his, Udin argues that despite his best support to hold into the humanity, Gregor is ultimately unable to maintain his sense of self and dies alone and forgotten. Now then, when in the ultimate part, when the insect or the Gregor dies, his father says that, "Now then," said Mr. Sansa, "let's give thanks to God for that. Now we can rest, and now we can live in peace because he is dead already." Gregor's transformation symbolizes the existential absurdity, suffering, and the inevitable erasure of the individual in an indifferent world. As we can find that the family or the society is with you whenever you are yourself. If you find any health condition or any mental condition, that we find in this only story also, that how our loved one leave us. So what type of human condition we find when we transform our body, transform our mental condition transform. Freud's idea of uncanny we also can read here. Freud's uncanny describes as the feeling when something familiar becomes unsettling strange. Gregor's family recognizes him at the first, but slowly dehumanizes him. His body is his own, but it is monstrous and alien. That was an animal's voice. When his chief came to his house, and he says when he responds, when he transforms into the insect, that he says that it is not the Gregor, it is the animal. Freud's idea, the loss of identity creates a psychological disform. The self becomes both known and unknown. In the another novel, The Stranger by Camus, we also find the absurdism and alienation. That idea we can also read in the another work of the Albert Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus, and Sartre's work, Being of Nothingness. That can be read as we find the emotional detachment and social alienation. Messer refuses to express grief to his mother's funeral, so society sees him as a stranger. In the quote, we find that in the very beginning line of the novel, it starts with, "Mom died today or yesterday, maybe, I don't know." He doesn't consider much of his own mother's death. So he is like totally emotionally detached from the world and from the family members. His lack of grief becomes a key argument against his during the trial. When he has killed the Arab and he was in the trial, how he is this very idea of his indifference toward the universe or the world is taken as to be hanged. Mesos is condemned not for killing the Arab but for his indifference toward the universe. As the pre-secret words, we find that he said that the truth was that I didn't have a soul, that nothing human, not one of the moral principle that governs man's heart, was within my reach. In the novel, we find how he is described by the prosecutor. Identity loss, how we find rejection of the socially defined identity. He does not have any emotional norm, no grief of his mother's funeral, as we have discussed before. His lack of emotional reaction is seen as a rejection of human identity. He is not considered as a human. He is something else. Indifference and detachment. He has no attachment towards a relationship, whether marry his employer or his own future. He does not seek redemption or meaning, remaining indifferent even during his trial. When in the novel, when he was proposed by one of his girlfriend, Mary, how he responds to that. In the quote we find, that evening Mary came by to see me, asked me if I wanted to marry her. I said it didn't make any difference to me, that we could if she wanted to. Then she wanted to know if I loved her. I answered the same way I did the last time, that I didn't mean anything, but it probably didn't. I didn't love her. So we can find that whatever comes, he just accept the reality or accept the truth as it is. He does not have any emotional part of that self. How we find the human condition, that idea we find in the Sartre, also in the Camus also. The message represent the existential freedom. He does not lie in confront himself or others. During the trial also, he does not lie. He just tell the truth, that I don't have any emotional attachment toward my mothers, or the crime that I have committed, that I don't have any remorse or any regret for that. He rejects the religious and moral and societal expectation in favor of personal honesty. Honestly, freedom through acceptance of the death. His calm acceptance of the execution mirrors the Camus idea of the one must live without illusion. Mrs. Happiness at the end comes from the fully embracing the absurd. He knows the truth. In the quote, Monty argues that he knows the truth of life, that is death. Life is meaningless and is simply because the death is unavailable. Another thing we also find, that how he is confront the death, that he is surrounded by the death from the beginning, as we have discussed. And in the latter part, in the very last paragraph of the novel, we find that he says that I felt that I had been happy, that I was happy again for everything to be consummated, for me to feel less alone. I had only to wish that there be a large crowd of spectators the day of my execution, and that they greet me with the cries of hate. He does not care that how people will see him or how he will be executed. He does not have anything regarding happiness or unhappiness. He is totally indifferent from the world or the consequences. That idea we can also find in the Buddhist philosophy of the detachment. And in the Bhagavad Gita, we also get the response, the theory of detachment also. So that can be also read here. If we compare the two novels and how the both protagonists react towards the absurdity or alienation or the themes of the absurdity, in the Metamorphosis we find that it is meaningless and irreversible. He does not turn himself into the human. In the Meso's case, existence is absurd, but he embraces it, he accepts it. Alienation we find Gregor reject the family by locked away, and where the Merselt is rejected by the society and condemned for his indifference. Identity crisis is Gregor loses his human identity, and Messrs refuses to confront the society's expectation of identity. Society behave that you should be behaving this manner, but he says no, I am the way I am. The human condition we find, Gregor slowly deteriorates dies into isolation. In the same way, we also find measured death but with the acceptance and embracing the absurdity. Resolution we find the tragic, that Gregor dies unnoticed, fully erased from the existence, whereas in the Camus case, the stranger, defiant, the mirror finds peace in the acceptance of the absurdity. In the conclusion, we can say there is the both of the novel depict the conflict between the human search for meaning and indifferent universe. The philosophy of Camus, the absurdity frame both protagonists struggle. Alienation and identity crisis, we also find that how the family and self and society plays a vital role in the transformation and how they react towards that. Emotional detachment of the masses can be also lead to societal alienation and moral condemnation. Both characters challenge the traditional notion of identity by refusing to conform. The human condition and the death, as we also discussed, that how they confront. Gregor dies as like remorsing on himself. He is doing the self-pity, but in the Mess's case, we find that he accepts his death. Contrasting respond toward the absurd, as we have discussed, how they see the death. Philosophical and literary significance, we find that both texts critique the societal expectation, morality, and human agency. Their themes remain relevant in the modern existential thought and postmodern literature. Broader implication can be lead toward the study highlights how literature serves as the medium to question human existence, the exploration of absurdity continues to influence discussion on identity, purpose, and limits of human freedom. Limitations can be restricted focus. I have also only taken the two novels, but Beckett, Sartre, and UNESCO can be also taken into the consideration. A limited interdisciplinary approach, sociological and post-colonial perspective can be also included. Historical and cultural context can also be studied, the background of the two writers. Subjective natures of absurdity can be also interpreted. A further scope for the research comparative study in the different genres can be also done: theory, theater, poetry, and the film. Modern absurdity can be also seen in the literature, cinema, and digital media. Philosophical and psychological connection can be also found in the further studies. This is the bibliography, primary source and secondary source. Thank you. This is from my side. Now for the questions.
Since you mentioned that death is such a central part of both of this novel, so my question is, do these novels suggest that confronting death is the only way to understand the absurd?
Yes, it can be interpreted in the similar manner, because both of the novel the protagonist dies, and the ultimate truth of the in the absurdity philosophy you also find whatever you do in the end of the life, you will be dead. So in the both of the cases that we can read that understand confronting the death is the only way to understood the absurd. But there can be other interpretations also. Like in the Mrs. case, we find that he accept the whatever comes to his life. So the acceptance of the reality or the acceptance of the absurd can also be interpreted, or that can be seen not to fear or to be like escaping from, but it is taken as a similar part, as a usual part of the life. So that can be my answer.
Hello. Got the sound is getting the sound. Yes. So apart from this, all seven we had this. Though even the existential and absurd the themes were also trying to see something separate, something different, something new. You were trying to look at those things. JAYSHRI also was quite unique and different. You can connect this idea about fantasies with the forbidden fruit idea. That is the apple story of Bible or fall of a man. So there is always some kind of an attraction when something is forbidden. Then people tend to get attracted to that in different ways. DHATRI also did well. Good practical work with chatbot on Waiting for Godot was worked out. Bhumi also presented very well on retellings of Greek and Indian mythology with Lyotard and the retellings ideas. And AAKASH also presented very well about this theme in hyperreal world, in the Hollywood films. Okay? So by and large, it was good. It was quite different theories were applied by everybody. So that way it is interdisciplinary approaches that all of you are taking. In the morning also we had the same way, a variety of theories being applied, theoretical positions being taken and presented also. Okay, so we end our this second session today. Tomorrow we'll have our third part of this seminar presentations.